Hello, it's Bethan from the Mental Health Support Team, and I'm here with the How Are You Doing podcasts. Today we're going to focus on coping, what that means, and how to help young people to manage. We're hoping that by the end of this podcast, you'll be able to recognise and identify when a young person is struggling to cope. You'll be able to further acknowledge some key areas which promote and facilitate coping, and you'll have some further thoughts on practical ideas which promote resilience in young people. So let's start with the basics. What do we mean by coping or resilience? Coping refers to the ability to face and deal with responsibilities, problems or difficulties, especially those done successfully or in a calm or adequate manner. Resilience is one thing that can help us to cope. Resilience helps us to deal with emotions a new situation, such as a change or challenge, may cause, and helps us to bounce back from difficulties we might encounter. Being resilient is an emotional skill and is something we can develop and build on, both as children and as adults. So when we refer to resilience and coping, we're thinking about that bounce back ability, similar to a wire spring. When a situation comes along and pressure is applied, are we able to withstand that pressure? Can we bounce back like that spring, dust ourselves off and get back into action? Or does it take a little longer to come around? It's important to note here that similar to the pressure applied to a spring, in some situations we might easily bounce back, and in others we might find it more of a challenge. And that's okay. It's all a learning curve, and we all respond differently to life's pressures. As we all know, children and young people are not sheltered from feeling emotions, and so it's not uncommon for children and young people to become overwhelmed by these strong feelings. And therefore, at some points in their life, they might struggle to manage those feelings. So, as a professional, how can you recognise if a young person has difficulties in this area of coping? We thought it might be helpful to start thinking about how we might tell when a person is resilient. What comes to your mind? How would you know if a young person was coping well? What signs would you look out for when thinking of a child who is resilient? I'm sure you can think of lots of attributes and have experience in recognising some of these signs. We've come up with the following list, though it's obviously not exhaustive. A person who is resilient is likely to recognise and manage their own feelings, understand the feelings of others, showing sympathy and empathy, have a sense of independence, one that's developmentally appropriate to their age, have a sense of self-worth, keep positive and mutually respectful relationships with others, be able to problem solve and make informed decisions, and have a sense of purpose and goals for the future. On the other hand, a young person who may have difficulties in this area of coping and resilience might present with the following. They may be low in confidence or self-esteem, have an inability or decreased ability in managing their own emotions. They may have emotional outbursts. These might include anger, irritability, and being tearful. They may use assurance-seeking behaviours, being dependent rather than independent. They may be withdrawn. They may not participate in activities that they previously enjoyed, or not want to try out new activities. And they may be using harmful coping strategies, such as self-harm, alcohol and drug use, and/or destructive behaviour. Generally, in these circumstances, the young person may be overestimating the danger or problem faced, while simultaneously underestimating their ability to cope and the resources available to them. Other signs to look out for include what the young person is actually saying about their ability to cope. There might be phrases like, "I can't do it," "It's too hard," "I've got no chance," "I can't cope." We know that when things are going well for us, our thoughts tend to follow, generally creating positive self-talk. "This is going well," "I'm doing okay," "I just need to keep going." And this pattern can be seen to follow when things aren't going well for us too. Our thoughts tend to follow that negativity, generally creating negative self-talk. "This isn't going so well," "I'm not okay," "I can't cope anymore." For young people, this negative self-talk can lead to low self-esteem, low mood, and heightened worry. That's why it's important to support young people with their coping and resilience levels. These areas impact a young person's mental health. Professionals working within schools are in a position to lay some good groundwork with children and young people in this area of coping resilience, which prepares them for the future. If you're interested in the evidence base behind this concept, we'd recommend looking up the Resilience Framework, which is based on a set of ideas and practices originally developed by Angie Hart and Derek Blinkow. The resilience research evidence base has been put together with other sets of ideas gleaned from practice with children and families in the NHS. And out of it has come a table, which is easy to follow. This can be found on www.boingboing.org.uk. On the table, coping makes up one of the 5 columns. It is then broken into specific approaches which include solving problems, calming down and self-soothing, leaning on others when necessary, and being brave. We won't go into all these now, so let's just pick up on being brave as a category for the time being. Being brave can mean different things to different people. It can encompass coping, or perhaps not complaining, the act of surviving, facing a fear, and doing something despite the opposition, whether mental or physical. But what has been shown is that taking a risk and doing something scary can help to build resilience, particularly if the risk is manageable and can be successfully negotiated with support and perseverance. I'm sure you can think of a time when you had to be brave despite the circumstances, and we hope that you can remember perhaps that confidence which followed as a result, or maybe the satisfaction of overcoming the hurdle. And it's the same for our young people. We want to foster that confidence in the face of challenge. To start with, since resilience and coping can be quite abstract terms, we think it's helpful to use analogies to describe them, such as the spring that I mentioned earlier and its bounce back ability, or Winnie the Pooh's Tigger and his tail. A slightly more in-depth analogy that you can use with young people is that of an airplane. Now bear with me on this and try to imagine this image to get all the detail. Imagine an airplane is lifted off the ground and it's been soaring through the air as it had hoped to. But mid-flight it begins to experience turbulence. The turbulence, or poor weather, represents adversity or life's challenges. They occur when expected and when least expected. Different planes will respond to poor weather conditions in different ways. In the same way, different children respond to the same adversity in different ways too. The ability of the plane to get through the poor weather and reach its destination depends on several things. These include the pilot, which is the child, the co-pilot, the child's social circles, their family, friends, teachers and health professionals, the people who guide the young person through life. Then you've got the type of plane, the child's individual characteristics such as their age, their temperament, their gender, religion, cultural experiences, etc. Then there's the equipment available to the pilot, the co-pilots and the ground crew. What do they have access to? What can help in times of trouble? What are their resources? And then you've got the severity and the duration of the poor weather. How long is this difficulty going to last? Can they see the blue sky? This picture illustrates that there are lots of factors at work when it comes to coping. It highlights that the person experiencing the difficulty is not alone in this. They do have a network of people around them. It also highlights that whilst there are some factors that cannot be changed, there are some that can. And it's also about understanding what resources are available during those times of adversity. It's important to note that just like cabin crew emphasise the safety equipment at the start of a journey, we as professionals can highlight young people's resources and safety measures to them, prior to them being in the thick of the storm. This will help them to be prepared. Okay, so let's think about 3 things that promote coping from a broader approach. The kind of ideas we can prepare children with. You may already have a couple of these in place, which is brilliant, and we'd love you to recognise things you do already which promote resilience. So first of all, simple things such as giving out a sense of responsibility aid resilience. Responsibility builds self-confidence and fosters that important positive self-talk. Giving children and young people individual tasks helps foster resilience. Tasks can gradually increase in complexity as you see the young person succeed and become ready for bigger steps. The idea is to create a bit of a challenge gap. This is that space in between where the young person currently is and where you envisage them to be after completing it. Somewhere where the person has been challenged and stretched, but that you know that they can see the task through, promoting those "I've got this" thoughts and the good feelings we gain from being brave. The second idea is labelling emotions to help with emotional literacy. Sometimes we just don't know what we're feeling, and so it can be helpful to have someone else's insight or suggestion available. It's basic, but as professionals we can model how to express our feelings correctly by taking opportunities to share our feelings. And these can be both positive and negative. So, it made me sad that ... Or, I'm really proud of how you responded to ... Or, I'm feeling really frustrated that this computer's not working, but I know what to do. I'm going to take a deep breath and stay calm. We'll work this out. Teaching emotional literacy also comes through little adjustments, like just asking how your young people are. How are you doing today? Maybe even being a bit cheeky now and again and asking for new words to describe the way they're feeling if it's becoming repetitive. We can also help young people's emotional literacy by summarising something they've shared and checking in as to whether we've got the emotion correct. For instance, it sounds like you are angry, upset, happy? Is that right? Or, I can see by your face that you are ... Please correct me if I'm wrong. Naming feelings can encourage children to understand what they're feeling and why they're feeling like that. It also helps them to realise feeling emotions is part of being human, and we can take control of how we respond to those feelings. Thirdly, how about having some positive self-talk bubbles displayed around the classroom or school? You could ask the young people this question. Your best friend is going through a difficult time. What would you say to them? Hopefully this would prompt responses such as, "Keep going, I know you can do this. It's a difficult time, but you're going to be okay." And this can provide you with an opportunity to talk about positive self-talk. It doesn't always come automatically, so sometimes it's helpful to think about your situation from your best friend's point of view, someone who will give you good advice. This is a good step to take when learning how to be kind to yourself. These thoughts could be made into speech bubbles and displayed somewhere for those times of need. So to conclude, we hope this has been a useful tool in helping you think about coping and resilience. We hope that these ideas might have encouraged you both in what you're already doing and with ideas for the future. There are so many great resources out there to use with young people, and we'll try to link some of these to this podcast for you. Keep up the good work, and thanks a lot for listening.